Fading bloom. Amara Patel gently trimmed the stems of white lilies for Mrs. Hoffman's anniversary arrangement. The sweet scent of flowers filled her small shop, petal and stem, tucked between a bookstore and cafe in the quieter part of town. 14 years of marriage, and she still brought home fresh flowers for Vincent every Friday, a tradition from when they were newlyweds and could barely afford rent, let alone fresh blooms. Her phone buzzed. Another cancellation from Vincent. The third dinner this month. Emergency consult with a celebrity client, his text read. Don't wait up. She placed her shears down and wiped her hands on her apron. The shop had been her sanctuary long before it became their financial support. While Vincent completed medical school, her arrangements had paid their bills and put food on the table. The children, Jasmine, 12, and Thomas, 9, had grown up among the greenery, learning the language of flowers before they could read. Mom, can I take these roses for my science project? Jasmine appeared from the back room, her school uniform slightly rumpled after a day of learning. Of course, honey. Just not the one set aside for the Reynolds wedding. The bell above the door chimed. Amara looked up, expecting Mrs. Hoffman, but instead found Delia Preston, a close friend and regular customer, looking unusually uncomfortable. Amara, do you have a minute? Delia's eyes darted to Jasmine. Alone? Something in her friend's expression made Amara's stomach tighten. Jasmine, can you check on the orchids in the greenhouse? Make sure the humidity is right. Once Jasmine disappeared through the back door, Delia placed her phone on the counter. I didn't want you to see this online first. The screen showed Vincent, Vincent, with his arm around Penelope Winters, the rising star of the medical drama Vital Signs. Their bodies were pressed close, his lips against her neck, outside an exclusive restaurant downtown. The timestamp was yesterday, during his medical conference in San Diego. I'm so sorry, Delia whispered. Amara stared at the image, her world, simultaneously shifting and freezing. Maybe it's not what it looks like, she said, though the words felt hollow even to her. That night, Vincent came home late. Amara sat in their kitchen, surrounded by the children's artwork and family photos. We need to talk, she said quietly. Vincent's practiced smile faltered. Can it wait until morning? I'm exhausted. Is it Penelope Winters? His silence was answer enough. How long? 6 months. He loosened his tie. Amara, you have to understand, my practice caters to people of influence now. I need someone who fits that world. And I don't fit. It wasn't a question. You're a wonderful mother, but we've grown apart. You're content with your little shop while I'm building something significant. The words stung worse than she'd anticipated. The little shop that put you through medical school. And I've repaid that investment tenfold. His tone turned businesslike. I've already spoken with my lawyer. I'm prepared to be generous with the settlement, but I want primary custody of the children. What? Why would... My home offers better opportunities, better schools, better connections for their future. You can see them on weekends. Amara felt, her chest constrict. You can't take my children. I'm not taking them. I'm providing for them. Vincent checked his watch. We'll discuss details tomorrow. I'm staying at the Westlake tonight. After he left, Amara walked through their home, touching photographs, children's toys, the life they'd built. In the garden, where she'd taught the children about growth and patience. She finally allowed herself to cry. Not for the marriage she was losing, but for the family being torn apart. What Vincent couldn't understand was that while flowers might look delicate, their roots ran deep and strong. And Amara Patel had always been more root than petal. Scattered seeds. The first winter after the divorce was the coldest Amara had ever experienced. Not because of the weather, which remained mild in their coastal town, but because her home echoed with the absence of her children's laughter. The judge had been swayed by Vincent's impressive income, prestigious address in Oak Ridge Heights, and promises of private education. Amara received only weekend visitation rights. "It's temporary," her lawyer, Regina Winters, reassured her. "We'll appeal once we gather more evidence about the children's well-being." But temporary still meant months of quiet Tuesdays when Jasmine would normally be practicing piano in the living room, and empty Thursdays when Thomas would be building Lego cities on the kitchen floor. The flower shop became Amara's lifeline. She poured her grief into creating more elaborate arrangements, experimenting with rare blooms, and expanding her wedding portfolio. Customers noticed the difference. Her work had always been beautiful, but now it carried something deeper, more poignant. "These centerpieces tell a story," a bride told her after seeing the sample arrangement. "I don't know what it is, but it makes me want to hold my fiancé a little tighter." Meanwhile, Vincent's star continued to rise. His practice, Blackwood Aesthetic, became the go-to destination for celebrities and socialites. Magazines featured his home, their former family pictures replaced with artistic photographs and sleek, minimalist decor. And always by his side stood Penelope, now his fiancée, her perfect features a walking advertisement for his work. The children struggled to adjust to their new reality. During weekend visits, Jasmine would curl up in Amara's garden, unusually quiet for a preteen. "Penelope says my clothes are tragically suburban," she confided one Saturday. "She took me shopping, but everything she picked was, I don't know. Not me." Thomas was more direct. "Dad's house has better stuff, but he's never there. When he is, he's always on his phone, and Penelope doesn't like when we make noise." Amara bit back the urge to criticize. "Your father loves you very much," she said instead. "He's just figuring out this new life, same as we are." But as months passed, she noticed troubling signs. Jasmine's grades were slipping. Thomas had developed a nervous habit of biting his nails. During one visitation exchange, Vincent arrived with Penelope, who remained in the car, oversized sunglasses hiding her expression as she scrolled through her phone. "The children said you've been bad-mouthing Penelope," Vincent accused, standing on Amara's porch. "I've never said a word against her." "Then why does Jasmine refuse to bond with her? We're getting married next month, and she needs to accept her new mother." Amara felt a flash of anger. "I'm their mother, Vincent. Penelope is your partner. There's a difference." This attitude is exactly the problem. He checked his watch, a new habit she'd come to resent. "I've scheduled them both for therapy. The therapist agrees they need help adjusting to the transition." After they left, Amara walked to the vacant lot behind her shop. The space had been abandoned for years, an eyesore of concrete and weeds. She'd been saving to expand her greenhouse, but suddenly a different vision took shape. The next day, she approached the city council with a proposal, a community garden where people could grow their own food, learn about sustainable practices, and find healing through horticulture. She would donate her expertise and starter plants if the city would provide water access. "I'll call it Second Bloom," she explained to the council members. "Everyone deserves a chance to grow again after hardship." To her surprise, the proposal was approved. Local news covered the story, the divorced florist creating beauty from abandonment. Volunteers appeared, retirees with gardening knowledge, students needing community service hours, and families looking for weekend activities. When the children visited, they helped plant the first seedlings. "Will they really grow here?" Thomas asked, skeptically eyeing the barren ground. "Just wait," Amara promised, placing his small hands around a tomato seedling. "The strongest plants often come from the most difficult conditions." 6 months later, when Vincent and Penelope returned from their extended honeymoon in the Maldives, the vacant lot had transformed into a vibrant garden that supplied fresh produce to 3 local food banks. And Amara, dirt under her nails and purpose in her stride, had begun to bloom again herself. First sprouts. 3 years passed in a blur of seasons, each marked by the growth of both Amara's garden project and her children. Second Bloom had expanded beyond the original lot to include 3 more community gardens across the city. What began as therapy for a broken heart had evolved into a nonprofit with 5 employees and dozens of volunteers. On a warm spring afternoon, Amara guided a group of elementary school children through the main garden. "These are heirloom tomatoes," she explained, kneeling beside a row of sturdy plants. "They come from seeds that families have saved for generations." "Like grandmas and grandpas of tomatoes?" a freckled girl asked. Amara smiled. "Exactly like that. They carry history in every seed." From the corner of her eye, she spotted Jasmine, now 15, helping a younger child plant sunflower seeds. Her daughter had grown taller, her features sharpening into adolescence, but it was the quiet confidence in her movements that made Amara's heart swell with pride. Thomas, 12 and gangly, was in the tool shed organizing the equipment, his self-appointed job whenever he visited. Despite Vincent's promises of enrichment, both children now spent most weekends and school breaks with Amara, not through any legal victory, but through their own persistent requests. "Mrs. Hernandez from the Chronicle is here," called Olivia, Amara's assistant director. "She wants quotes for the feature on urban agriculture." "Can you handle it? I promised the kids we'd have a picnic by the creek after the tour." Olivia nodded. "Of course. You've done 3 interviews this month already. Go be with your children." Later, as they sat on a blanket sharing sandwiches and fruit, Jasmine revealed the reason for her unusually subdued mood. "Dad and Penelope are fighting all the time," she said, picking at her food. "Last night was really bad. She threw a vase at the wall." Thomas nodded solemnly. "Penelope says Dad works too much, and Dad says she spends too much money." "Their business is struggling," Jasmine continued. "I heard Dad on the phone with his lawyer. Something about malpractice suits and settlements." Amara chose her words carefully. "Your father is under a lot of pressure. His job comes with big responsibilities." "But you're busy too, and you never scream or throw things," Thomas pointed out. "You just go garden when you're mad." The comment made Amara pause. She'd never considered how her coping mechanisms might be shaping her children's understanding of adversity. That evening, after dropping the children back at Vincent's modernist mansion, noticeably more subdued than in previous years, Amara received an unexpected call from Regina, her lawyer. "Have you seen the news?" Regina asked without preamble. "I've been with the children all day. What's happened?" 3 former patients have filed a class action lawsuit against Blackwood Aesthetic, claiming Vincent performed unnecessary procedures and misrepresented potential outcomes. 1 patient suffered permanent nerve damage. Amara sank into her kitchen chair. "That's terrible. Are the patients okay?" "You're asking about the patient's welfare rather than celebrating your ex-husband's downfall? This is why I like you, Amara." Regina's voice softened. "There's more. Penelope Winters has been named as a co-defendant. Apparently, she received kickbacks for referring her celebrity friends." The news spread quickly through their community. Oak Ridge Heights buzzed with gossip about the golden couple's fall from grace. Amara instructed her staff not to discuss the situation, especially when the children were present, but the fallout proved impossible to contain. 2 weeks later, Jasmine called late at night, her voice thick with tears. "Mom, can you come get us, please?" Penelope left. "She took her things while we were at school." Amara found Vincent sitting in his dimly lit kitchen, surrounded by legal papers. The children were upstairs, bags already packed. 3 weeks, he said hoarsely. That's how long it took her to leave once the money was threatened. For a moment, Amara saw past the expensive haircut and designer clothes to the young medical student she'd once loved. Brilliant, but vulnerable. "The children can stay with me until things settle," she offered. Vincent nodded, then looked up with reddened eyes. "How did you do it, Amara? When I left you with nothing, how did you not fall apart?" She thought of her gardens, of tiny seeds pushing through concrete. I had everything that mattered, she answered simply, and I planted something new. As she drove home with her children sleeping in the back seat, Amara realized that the first sprouts of justice had finally broken through the soil, not by her hand, but by the natural order of consequences taking root. Unexpected harvest. 5 years after the lawsuit, Amara stood in the gleaming commercial kitchen of Bloom and Nourish, the farm-to-table cafe that had become the latest extension of her growing enterprise. What had started as a community garden was now a recognized brand with 4 locations, a catering service, and a line of preserved goods sold in specialty stores across 3 states. "The health inspector gave us full marks," announced Priya, the head chef and Amara's business partner. "And that food critic from the National Gazette is coming next Tuesday." "Let's feature the seasonal harvest menu," Amara suggested, sampling the carrot ginger soup Priya had just prepared. "Everything from within 50 miles. At 42, Amara had found an unexpected second act. Her dark hair now featured strands of silver that she made no attempt to hide. Laugh lines framed eyes that had regained their sparkle. The divorce that once threatened to define her had instead refined her, burning away what was inessential and leaving something more authentic in its place. The bell above the door chimed. As Thomas entered, now 17 and bearing a striking resemblance to his mother in both appearance and temperament. He'd been working part-time at the cafe since getting his driver's license, saving for college while learning every aspect of the business. "Mom, did you see the email from Berkeley?" he asked, his expression unreadable as he tied on an apron. Amara's heart skipped. "I haven't checked since this morning." "What did they say?" A grin broke across his face. "Full scholarship to the environmental science program. They specifically mentioned my work with Second Bloom in the acceptance letter." The kitchen erupted in cheers. Priya hugged Thomas while Amara wiped away tears, remembering the little boy who had once questioned whether plants could grow in abandoned concrete. "We should call your sister," Amara said when she could speak again. "She'll want to hear right away." Jasmine, 20 now and in her sophomore year at Columbia, had chosen a pre-law track with a focus on environmental policy. Her internship with a prominent environmental law firm had recently turned into a part-time position. Both children had found purpose in rebuilding rather than accumulating, a philosophy Amara had never explicitly taught but had demonstrated daily. Later that evening, as they celebrated with a small dinner party at Amara's cottage, expanded, over the years but still modest by Oak Ridge standards, Jasmine made an announcement of her own. "Professor Daniels asked me to join her research team for a paper on urban land reclamation laws," she said, her dark eyes shining with the same quiet determination that had gotten her mother through the darkest days. "We'll be studying Second Bloom as a case study of successful community transformation." Amara felt a surge of pride mixed with wonder. Her children had not merely survived the fracturing of their family, they had found purpose in its aftermath, turning pain into passion, just as she had. The conversation was interrupted by Thomas's phone ringing. He stepped away to answer, returning moments later with a troubled expression. "It's Dad," he said quietly. "He's asking if he can stop by. Says it's important." An hour later, Vincent Blackwood sat at Amara's kitchen table, looking like a diminished version of his former self. The designer clothes were gone, replaced by a simple button-down shirt and jeans. The confident posture had given way to slumped shoulders. "I've sold the practice," he announced without preamble. "What's left of it? After the settlements and Penelope's divorce, there wasn't much to salvage." Amara poured him tea in silence, noting how the children watched their father with a mixture of compassion and wariness. "I'm moving to Arizona," Vincent continued, "taking a position at a community health clinic. It's humbling but necessary." "That sounds like meaningful work," Amara offered, surprised by her lack of resentment. Vincent looked up, his eyes searching hers for mockery and finding none. The thing is, before I leave, I wanted to give something to the children. He placed a thick envelope on the table. It's not much compared to what it once was, but it's what I managed to protect from the lawsuits. I thought maybe college funds. We don't need it, Jasmine interrupted gently. I have my scholarship and internship. Thomas just got a full ride to Berkeley. Vincent's face registered surprise, then something more complex, pride tinged with regret. I didn't know. There's a lot you don't know, Thomas said, not unkindly. But we're doing really well, Dad. After Vincent left, promising to keep in better touch from Arizona, the three of them sat in the garden Amara had built behind her cottage. Solar lights illuminated paths between raised beds of herbs and flowers, creating a sanctuary that felt worlds away from the sleek, sterile environment of their former life. "Are you okay, Mom?" Jasmine asked, studying her mother's face in the soft light. Amara considered the question, feeling the solid ground beneath her feet and the night air rich with the scent of jasmine and rosemary. "I'm more than okay," she answered truthfully. "I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be." That night, after the children had gone to bed, Amara walked through her garden, reflecting on how life had come full circle. Vincent had once discarded her for someone who better fit his image of success. Now, as his carefully constructed facade crumbled, she had built something real and lasting from the very ground up, an unexpected harvest from seeds planted in sorrow. Full circle. 10 years had passed since Vincent's departure to Arizona when Amara celebrated her 52nd birthday. Second Bloom had blossomed into an international foundation, with community gardens established in 12 countries across 3 continents. What began as one woman's healing journey had transformed countless abandoned spaces into sources of nourishment and community. Amara's silver-streaked hair now framed a face marked by joy rather than sorrow. She'd found contentment in her work, her friendships, and most importantly, in watching her children forge their own paths with integrity. Jasmine, 30 now, had become an environmental attorney whose precedent-setting cases had changed urban development policies nationwide. Thomas, 27, managed the Foundation's international programs, implementing sustainable agriculture in urban food deserts around the world. "Mom, we need you at the main garden for an emergency board meeting," Thomas called one spring morning. His serious tone contrasted with the twinkle in his eyes. When Amara arrived, she found not a crisis, but a celebration. Beneath a canopy of flowering trees stood a crowd of friends, employees, and community members. At the center waited her children, beside a covered sign. "What's all this?" she asked, overwhelmed by the unexpected gathering. Jasmine stepped forward. 10 years ago, Dad gave us an envelope of money we didn't need. Instead of returning it, we invested it. In you." Thomas pulled away the covering to reveal a bronze plaque. "The Amara Patel Institute for Urban Renewal, Where Broken Ground. Become sacred space." "We've secured funding for a permanent research facility," Jasmine explained, "where your methods will be taught to community organizers from around the world." Amara's hand flew to her mouth. "You did this? All these years? You showed us that true wealth isn't in what you possess, but in what you grow," Thomas said simply. From the back of the crowd, a figure approached. Vincent, older now, his expression humble. "I hope it's okay that I came. The children invited." "Me?" "Of course," Amara said, surprised to feel no lingering resentment. "I got it wrong, Amara," he admitted quietly. "What you built, it's extraordinary." As they stood together watching their children unveil plans for the Institute, Amara reflected on life's perfect symmetry. Vincent had once discarded her for someone more glamorous, believing success came from appearance and acclaim. Now, surrounded by the living legacy of her work, Amara understood that her greatest victory wasn't in proving him wrong. It was in creating something so authentically right that it had transformed not just abandoned spaces, but the hearts of everyone it touched, including her own. The garden where she had once wept now bloomed with possibility, proving that sometimes the most beautiful growth occurs precisely where we've been broken.